We all experience that. So okay.
Yes, so very exciting.
It is very exciting. And guess what? We are live. And I want to make sure simply that you remember what you just said about love, because we are live and we are ready with Intercultural Spark. And Intercultural Spark, it's that show about that spark inside each of us that drives you to spark change in the world. Something new that we do. I have my guest today, Simply Speaks, and Henry Chu, and both have amazing stories of sort of being the underdog and going from, actually both, one thing you share in common, you were both homeless at one point in your lives, and just had this dream and this idea of really building a life as a speaker, as an entrepreneur. And so we're excited to hear your stories of how you've done that and the good you drive in the world. We are going to start with, because speaking of bringing everything you have to the forefront, I'm also a fitness instructor. And so we are going to start with our flash exercise. All right. So the reason I like to start with this, I like to open with the flash exercise because, and Henry, I think you may still be getting that echo, unless
No, I
it's
don't have
me.
that.
Oh, I hope it's not me. We're going to do our flash exercise. It's called interpretive aerobics. And I wonder if it'll be better without that. Can you hear me now still?
Yeah.
Okay. It might be my mic that's getting the backdrop. All right.
Yeah.
Flash exercise, interpretive aerobics, which is a fitness exercise that pertains to the theme of our show. So if you're in a position to stand up and join me, I ask you to do that. And this is I'll say it's a cardio fitness kind of pick. So this comes from kickboxing, and it's a roundhouse. And so if your feet are kind of just under your hips, your hands are here to protect, you would lift your leg to the side and then snap that kick and bring it in. Doesn't matter how high you lift. You can always do it as a tap, so it could just be it can be low down. I'm going high so that you can see it on camera. So it's a lift and a snap and a down. And what I like about this, one, because it feels really good to be like, poo. But I also love it because both of you have really kicked some butt to get where you are now. And of course, it ties into Henry and his Punch King with all of his boxing. So your exercise of the day is the roundhouse kick.
Yes, I do my punching every morning.
Yeah, and do some punches with it. Boom, pop, 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 pop. There you go. So that's our exercise of the day as a precursor to out of breath.
You must have known that I needed to get my knee together.
Well, let's go ahead and welcome us to Intercultural Spark. Thank you for that. All right. So we're back and we are ready to talk. And both of you have amazing stories. Both of you, like I said, at one point you were both homeless, and both of you had such a strong dream that has pulled you forward. So simply, can you just give us a little bit in a nutshell, like your story in terms of where you were and how you got to where you are now?
Of course. And, happy Thursday. Thank you for having me here. I'm Simply Speaks with Simply Speaks LLC. My mission in life is to inspire others to go beyond, their comfort zones and to get uncomfortable. So I am coming from, the inner city, being homeless, being, kicked out as a teenager and needing to find my way throughout the South Bronx, and, being told early on, you're going to be a statistic. And I decided, in my life, I was going to do the opposite of everything that was going on around me. That doesn't mean that I didn't fall into what I call the traps of poverty and conditioned behaviors. I did. But I got to a point where I started to go within what I call the intuition and instinct, going in and listening to my inner guide in terms of getting to my next level and really questioning the reason why. Why am I here? What is my purpose, on this planet? Everyone has what I call the life contract. And I've decided that I'm going to honor that contract, and do what needs to be done, regardless of the obstacles. Being homeless, a teenage mother at a young age, trying to figure out sexual identity and gender identity. And, saying, what, this is who I am. And no matter what I do, I'm going to push forward for the best self. So that's what my journey is about.
And certainly in your book, like your dream of everything that you were going to do with your life is so powerful. No matter what you were going through, you still had that vision of where and who you were going to be. So, Henry, what about you?
Well, for me, it's my journey is it's kind of different because I came here as an immigrant. I was born in Hong Kong, so I came to San Francisco when I was 5 years old. My parents were farmers from China, so they're from the village, so they're not educated. So coming here to America as an immigrant, as a poor immigrant, and not having a father figure around. And I'm not your typical Asian. I'm not a crazy rich Asian. No, I could call myself an underdog coming here, starting from the bottom without no guidance. I actually didn't even know why I existed because I'm number 5 or 6 kids growing up here, and going through life was very challenging in itself because not knowing have guidance of life in period, just thrown in to the world and just have to figure it out as I went on. Think about not having a father or mom that can guide me because they didn't know English, they didn't know the system here, and it took me a while. I hated really my early childhood. It was very dark because there was a lot of violence, a lot of just stuff that it didn't make sense until I've been through it. Going through so many drugs, going through gangs, and surviving all that, and then joining the military, and then just going through the whole process. And now, as I'm older now, going through a lot of things, it makes a lot of sense now. What's going on now that I have a sense of purpose of why things happen to me from the past. Now that dark, now there's light. So that's what I want to share.
Mm. And what I saw with both of you is you got ideas about what you could or couldn't do, let's say from peers. Simply, you had mentioned this idea that growing up in a neighborhood that was, as I understood, like primarily African American, that you were told, well, the white people will never let you succeed. But then when you moved and got into a more integrated neighborhood, as I recall, what you said was that you found a different experience. And so how did what people told you could do, how did that compare to finally being on your own and seeing what you could do?
One thing, and thank you for bringing that up. It's important to discuss, especially now, in the times that we are experiencing in the world. Growing up in a city, in a family, minority family, was kinship care under the guidance of what I call the caregiver, my caregiver, and we were taught early on as kids that we were different from everyone else. We were different from Caucasians or anyone else that was quote unquote rich and had money. So what they did, we couldn't do it. That wasn't possible. And I always think about, like Halloween, going trick or treating. Oh, you need to go to the rich community because here in the hood, you're going to get the cheap candy. And so we grew up with this idea of less than. And for me, it wasn't until I left the Bronx. I left the Bronx in 2003, somewhere along there, and I started traveling. And the first time I went to Washington, D.C., I saw diversity, and I allowed myself to interact with different people. I grew up with, African Americans, Latinos, Africans, a little bit of everyone else. And we had this idea of, no, this is us. We can't really integrate with other people. And so I decided, once I went to Washington, D.C., where I was doing some research on homeless populations, that I was going to allow myself to meet other people and not judge them by the color of their skin. Although I was well aware of the great racial divide. And that has been the beauty in my journey, seeing people for who they are as a spirit first, because we hold on to, this identity, African American, Caucasian, Asian, and what have you. And in my mind, at least, and in my spiritual awareness, those items are secondary. Who is the person in front of me as a spirit?
Mm-hmm.
And this
Mm-hmm.
is how I live my life. Again, although I'm aware of the racial divide.
Mm-hmm. But trying to, well, and actually, when we look at diversity and inclusion, it's how do you get rid of the unconscious bias to be able to look at the person before you as the primary person that you're interacting with. So it's, that's a practice. That actually is not something that happens naturally. It's something that's a practice that hopefully more people will embrace. You
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. And it's an ongoing practice,
Mm-hmm.
to be aware each and every day of how we interact with people, and
Mm-hmm.
even I go back to the minority community being told once I, started doing my education, oh, you're speaking like you're white, you're acting like you're white. What does that mean? Or the
Mm-hmm.
idea of I'm going to take your black card. What is a black card? If it means that you're going to beat me up and downgrade me, take the card because I don't want it. You understand? So
Mm-hmm.
it's like these are the things that we don't explore and we don't talk about enough, especially in workplaces.
Mm-hmm. Right. And when we don't talk, people fill in. Like if you don't own your identity and talk about it, people can fill in. And Henry, I saw you nodding your head, so it sounds like some of this resonates with your experience as well.
Um, you know, life is very challenging. Because you're dealing with different. It's too, like we talk about. It's from experience. You have to go. It's from experience, experiencing everybody and appreciating everybody. If you don't have experience of dealing with different scenarios, cultures, it's really kind of hard to really explain it. So, like that's pretty much what I want to share about his experience.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But now, what has been your experience as far as, because with your business, it sounds like you're the Punch King, the punch from our kickboxing, but you're Punch King. I'll pull that up. You are working internationally with that business, so it sounds like you're working with different communities and cultures all the time now.
Yeah, well, because it's dealing with fitness and martial arts. So with
Hmm.
fitness, it's for everybody, right? And martial arts. So especially with martial arts, it comes from Asia, but now it's big with MMA. You know, that culture is changing. So yeah, everybody is getting into fitness, and with MMA, you have every culture involved in it. So now you have the UFC, you have the One Championship. It's bringing all the cultures together.
Hmm. Well, let's talk about your business. Now that I'm looking at this, that looks like so much fun. So I want to just talk about your businesses that you're doing now. So Henry, for you, this is both a gym and a product, correct? Because this is pretty amazing. It's a pretty thorough piece. Like if people are doing kickboxing, like you can really get some good power with that.
So what it is Punch King is basically what it is my partner, he's the founder. He reinvented the punching bag. If you look at the
Hmm.
punching bag, no one's really done anything with it. And so if you see the way the Punch King bag is more of a targeted a punching bag. So the regular punching bag is there, but with the Punch King, it's more focused. You see, there's a head. So now,
Hmm.
if you're training, now you have a more targeted, focused training. So if you're going to train on a Punch King bag, your punches and your kicks and everything is more accurate because you can see points on the bag opposed to a regular punching bag.
Hmm.
If you do any boxing, it's just like a little brown bag. So it's not really, it's not really enticing to me.
Hmm.
But with the punching bag, since I've been working on it, I see it that it's I can really feel the head. I can do uppercuts. I can
Hmm.
do a lot of things. So anybody who's training in boxing, MMA, they're gonna find a big advantage
Hmm.
with the punching bag. But they can still use the regular bag. But with the punching bag, it's all three bags in one. When you have
Hmm.
the regular
Sure.
bag, you turn it back, it's just a regular bag. But in the front, you have all the
Hmm.
niches and all the target points. So.
Yeah, I think I mentioned I used to teach cardio kickboxing. So I was looking at it, I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yeah. So, and I always joke the only time my husband took my class I've taught for years was when I was teaching boxing because he was like, if you're learning how to box, so am I. So so I wanted to share this comment from Stephanie. Hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for being here. But excellent discussion. Simply, are the minority youth leadership programs you initiated per your website still in progress? If so, how do you measure the program success? Thanks so much for that great question, Stephanie.
Yeah, that's a great question, Stephanie, and thank you. They are in place, not through me. I'm no longer a member of Toastmasters International program, if that's what you're speaking about, or you may have been speaking about programs that I created years back for youth in Poughkeepsie, New York. Those programs are no longer available. I'm not sure which program you're speaking about. I'm assuming you may be talking about the Toastmasters International Speakers Leadership Program for Youth, which I started when I resided in Dutchess County. That program is available for, to any Toastmaster member that wants to work directly with youth in any community. But I thought it was very important once I got into Toastmasters, where I was a member for many years and the vice president of marketing at some point. I thought it was very important to bring the idea of speaking and debate to impoverished communities. And I was the first one to do that. Outside of that, I was able to create, a youth program with a nonprofit that focused on showing young adults, teenagers, that there was something more. And I did that, created speaking platforms based on the idea of what was going on in their community. So, for example, if gang violence was an issue, I created a platform to speak about gang violence through performance, spoken word, poetry, and public speaking. And these things are important. We look at minorities, in communities that are impoverished, showing them that there is something more, especially when we look at communication. Oftentimes, now, the school system has an array of leadership things that young people can do, especially in the communication realm. But, it's so important that young adults recognize that they can take where they are in that present moment and design something for themselves, which is entrepreneurship.
That's
I,
really powerful.
I hope that answered Stephanie's great question.
Well, the other thing that plays into Stephanie's great question, and this turns back to a question for both of you, is so from reading your book about the uprise of the resilient woman. Speaking of resilience, so I understood that you created the program, but then they wanted you to do it for free, or they wanted to pay like $10 an hour to run this amazing youth program. And it's the idea of how do you assign value to yourself? That's a hard one because you're doing something that's good for the youth, but at the same time, they're disrespecting you and not giving value to it. So, how do you do that line between, which actually I'm cutting myself off because this is the whole idea of when you talk about the spark that we bring to the world. Of course, we have to make a living. Like people are making a living. It's where do those things align? And so maybe that's a question back to each of you of that line between what you bring to the world, but also realizing it is about making a business and making a living and melding those things.
Right. Henry, would you like to
say that again?
On that? Wait, Henry, do you want to speak on that or?
Yeah. So Henry, how do you align? You have so much passion about continuing to contribute to the world. You shared before, you're like, I'm 57, I've got experience, I'm bringing it, I'm bringing stuff to the world. So how do you feel like you aligned your value system with what you bring to the world through your work?
It's through experience, like it's a member experience, because how can you help others if you haven't experienced it, right? If you haven't gone through it, talk is cheap, like I always say. You got to have proven yourself. So now I find myself that, I've been there, done that. So like I said, my past has my past. So actually my past is my blessings now, because now I have something to share from my past. I started from the ground, I'm the underdog, but now I've evolved now. I became a CEO, I own businesses. So, and I tasted the money. I started from zero, made millions, and I've fallen, but I didn't give up. And the key thing to life is you don't give up, right? Because getting is easy, but sustaining yourself is a hard part. And that's what I see, that's what's missing out there is, you need a balance of the young and the veterans, right? The balance. Without the balance, how can you move forward? Because society says, oh, we don't want we want to shelf the olders and let's get all the young guys from college into the system, right? Because they're young. And no, you can't do that. You need experience to help the youth coming in, right? They're young, and with the balance and with your experience, you can help others because you've done that. And that's what I always seen that. I always seen, wait a minute, how come this guy's talking? How can you be for example, they're saying, oh, they're a life coach and they're a business coach, but you're only 20, 30 years old. How can you
I'm a
be?
20-year-old life coach, right?
Yeah, your family,
That
do
sounds
you
like
have
an
a family, you have
oxymoron.
kids? No, really, honestly, I'll keep it real. Like for example, even like I never went to college. Like I'm up in the streets. So, but I've attained, and I've been to the top. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So and I've seen people, go to college. So I look at it, and I asked my daughter. My daughter went to college. I said, "That's a daughter."
Mhm.
In school, she took marketing. She goes, I said, "Is your teacher a business person who's teaching you?" Right? She goes, "No." Then I'm thinking about it myself as a businessman. How can you teach business if you not even have no experience in business? So you go by
Mhm.
theory. So again, that's where to me I always go by experience, and
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
how I
and I'm
feel.
going to chime in here for a second with a question from Stephanie. Thank you. And Stephanie, by the way, I sometimes do okay, this whole interpretive aerobics thing, it's really a thing. I sometimes do how to incorporate when you can't decide if you want happy hour or exercise, you combine them. So I did a whole series on this, and Stephanie has actually posted videos of that using lemonade. So she is definitely an aspiring exerciser. And she says, how would you motivate a slight woman, boomer here, how to properly use a punching bag? It's not easy for me to throw a punch. You got to use your anterior serratus for sure.
Right.
Well, but the best thing to do is to go to a gym, and go get a trainer who's experienced to teach you the
Mm.
basics. That's what I recommend, because there is a technique to that in punching. But I tell you what, in fitness, I've never really done a punching bag until I got involved with Punch King, because
Yeah.
I'm a street fighter. I never had money to go to martial arts school or whatever. But but training on I tell you what, but training on the punching bag, it really is a game changer. So I'm used to doing weights, playing basketball, but if you a boxer, when you're punching, you're working out a certain part of your body that you never worked out before. How about that? When you're lifting weights. So that, again, that's from experience, because I worked it, and so now I have knowledge now from experience, so I can now educate others on that.
Mhm. And simply, yeah, and actually, Stephanie, we'll catch you afterwards and show you how to get that boom, that power into that punch. Look at
The
me go.
knockout.
Yeah, exactly the knockout muscle. So, in 1 second, we're going to go to our flash photo stories. But the same question I wanted to circle back with, simply because you've got all this life experience, but you also, I think you at least, I know you, I think you have at least a master's. And have you gone on even beyond that at this point? Like, it was important for you to pursue that education for what you wanted to do.
Yeah, education is very important for me. I'm a champion of it. It's the reason why, I am in the space that I am in today, recognizing that education is important. I started my PhD program. I think I did 3 semesters. I've been on pause, as I call it, for maybe 2 or 3 years now. I do intend to go back to complete my PhD in psychology. Education, is the backbone to all that I've done. I was on welfare let me backtrack a little bit. I was kicked out of the home as a teenager, and I didn't get to go to my graduation. I was kicked out 6 months before graduation. And no, I was not, an individual in my younger years that was, quote unquote bad. It was just that I was in a dysfunctional home, and that was the process. And once I was in the streets, in the community, I had a choice to make. Do I continue going to school? Number one. Do I inform the school that I had been kicked out? I had been conditioned by my caregiver to believe that the system was not a place I needed to be in. If you go into the system, into a group home or residential facility, you are not going to be anything. They're going to violate you sexually, just all of these things. So I feared it, and I took onto the streets, and I decided that, you know what, I'm not going to finish my education. By age 19, I was pregnant after, trying to survive, sleeping with a married person for $400, although that was not what I wanted to do. And, I decided once I had my daughter that I needed to go back to school, not so much for her, but for myself. I need to finish. And I registered for community college where I graduated a year and 3 months. And it's like, no, this is the stepping stone. I don't want to be on welfare for the rest of my life. So I was on welfare from age 19 to age 23. And so education has been the backdrop of everything. So I bring to the platform, I bring what I call the street hustle, the street experience, but also my academic experience. And I always tell people, don't get fooled when you see me in a sweatsuit suit and a t-shirt, because when I get dressed up, I get dressed up as well. And when I speak from, my education and my those street smarts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Henry, I see you shaking your head. Was there something that resonated with you with that?
Oh yeah, it's that grit. It's that street experience that
Mhm.
simply has. You see, like if when you have that, it's like we don't have anything else, but it's that perseverance, the
Mhm.
resilience,
Mhm.
that we don't give up, and that's why street is where she's at right now because of that.
Mhm. Well, it certainly feels like having had that experience of really, literally having to survive in the face of so much adversity. It's almost like you must feel like you could handle anything, after having that history. That's what it seems like. Wait, to me, says the
Absolutely.
woman who grew up like in completely like suburban Midwest, I kind of always followed the rules, probably to a fault, but the rules of my world were designed to support me. It was almost like an anomaly if you did drugs or things like that. Like, even if you were faced with drugs or things like that, people would be like, oh, but you're still so funny. They would still look at you and know that you were on the track of like college, high school. Like nobody judged you for where you were in the moment in the world where I grew up. Um, um, all right. I want to, and I only share that, I guess, as to show with respect. Also, just we bring so many different things to the world. We were talking before we started that we each have such an amazing experience, and today, all three of us are like, how can we make the world better? How do we push people up? And we got California with Henry, New York, Chicago. We're across the globe of really just wanting to make good change in the world. Oh, actually, and Stephanie saw that too. Henry plus Simply is a winning speaker combination.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Stephanie. You,
so
you,
I
you
want.
know, Anna, really quick, the idea of growth and resilience and success, we've been taught there's this idea that most people have in their mind. Success looks like whatever they have in their mind,
Mhm,
and it's the opposite. The opposite. In the inner city, people think that success is you have a nice car, you have fancy clothing, you have all this other material stuff. And I
Amen.
always say that each day that each day that you work towards your assignment, you are successful. If you read one book on growth, you are successful. If you honor yourself one day, you are successful. And so we have to get out of the framework that materialism equals success. That is secondary. When I left the
mhm,
Bronx in 2003 to Crazy Faith to become this public speaker, I had no idea which way to go. I got to Poughkeepsie,
mhm,
New York. Within 2 weeks, I didn't have any money. Just a lot of things were happening. I ate donuts for 2 weeks. People don't know the story. I ate donuts for 2 weeks from a food pantry, and I was walking in the community with
mhm,
shoes with holes in it, going door to door to nonprofits, trying to get speaking opportunities. Success is going that extra mile for what you want, no matter what. Going the extra mile, no matter what. That's the bottom line. That's success. That's what
mhm,
we call resilience. That's what we call punching the bag. That's what we call the bounce back.
mhm, mhm,
I want to share this. But me, the difference with me and Simply is we both left the streets. We left. See, with me, I joined the Air Force. I was in my hood. In my hood, I never went anywhere because during the holidays, all the kids would go skiing. They would leave, and I'll be stuck in the hood because we didn't have no money. But the only time I left when I joined the Air Force. When I joined the Air Force, I traveled the world. I was overseas, and that's when my mind's opened up, and I got to see things,
mhm,
experience things, and that's when everything changed for me. It was a game changer, right? Simply once you saw different things from your regular environment that you had, you got to get out of your comfort zone. That's what it is. You got to be. I would say I practice being comfortable, be uncomfortable.
Be
While everybody's
uncomfortable.
comfortable and they're still complaining. How about that? You have it. You're still complaining. See that's what's wrong. See,
yeah,
right? When you don't have it, hey, you know what? We don't make excuses. We just basically we just deal with the things that we have. We appreciate the things that we have. How about that? And you move forward.
Right.
Well, and speaking of things you have, we're going to go into our final section of the show, which is the flash photo stories. Okay, one day I'm actually going to have somebody write jingles on the show and then see if that wasn't me. That wasn't me like behind the screen going flash. Actually, what's crazy is I actually do a dance when I say it. So it's not even just the flash photo stories. There's the dance that goes with it. But one day someone will come on, they'll be like, I can write you a jingle for that. But that is not the point. The point is what flash photo stories are. So I asked each of you to send me photos. I've kind of mixed them up. And I love to do this because we've got 30 minutes. We're actually already pushing it now. You're both so deep and so complex, have lived such rich lives, and we're trying to talk in like 30 minutes to say, tell me everything. So the flash photo stories, it's like a 2-sentence story about each photo. So that allows us to get just a little bit more about you. So Henry, this one's yours. What's going on here?
This one, I got to screen the first film I produced. How about that? In the theater, in my neighborhood. How about that? These are 49er veterans, Daryl Pollard and Dennis Brown in San Francisco. How about that? In the theater in my neighborhood where I grew up in. And I got to screen them.
That had to feel great. Right. And that highlights the fact that you're, I would call a serial entrepreneur between, you've got the filmmaking business, the Liquid Nitro, which is a fitness drink, and then also Punch King. So you've got all kinds of things. But that had to feel great to actually to be with the people and back in your own neighborhood to show what you've done. Simply, what about this one?
This is the promotion for the book as it was being released, and behind that, when you look at that, that image, everyone is like, great shot. And people going back again to the idea of going the extra mile. I have on a suit that was borrowed from my former partner. I had, just trying to, I got to get there. I have to get to New York City, and I have to do this this photo shoot. I need a suit. I couldn't find one. Borrowed glasses from my former partner, who's very supportive, and saying, you know what, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to, lend a hand to those that want to get to that next level. I'm going to lend a hand to those who want to break the chains and say no more. I'm going to show people that it is possible to get out of the comfort zone. And it starts by recognizing the toxic conditioning that you've been taught.
Actually, I love what you just said. This literally is showing in the image of lending a hand and of breaking the chain. All those images are within this one image. Henry, back to you with Punch King.
Yeah, this is me and my family. We were at the first exposition we did right before COVID last year in I believe beginning of the year. So we got to do our first expo in Sacramento, and my family was there.
Oh,
before
nice.
COVID.
Yeah. And I saw the truck that you have that you actually can like almost pull up with a gym with that portable truck. A trailer. Yeah. Very cool. Simply?
So this one, the caption, and is healing is the cure to all the aches in the world. This awareness has to happen if we truly want to see change. And as I was there at Bryant Park doing this photo with a wonderful photographer, it was like last minute November. It was very cold outside. I was looking around at the homeless population and the people passing by, and like healing has to take place. There's so much happening in the world, and we try to figure it out. And at the end of the day, it gets back to healing. Healing has been, my experience. It's been my go-to for 20 plus years, recognizing that before you can get to the next level, very important for people that are listening in, to get to that next level, you have to sit with self and undo the things that are bothering you. You have to heal those old wounds.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've said that in your book, at the end of each chapter, there's been things like, who do you need to let go of? Who do you need
Absolutely.
to forgive? Because you're right. There's that phrase that says that, that harboring anger against someone is like picking up a hot coal to throw at them. You're the only one who really gets burned when you harbor those negative feelings.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, this is absolutely adorable. Henry?
That was me. That was in 1968. That's when when we were living. I was holding my mom's hand there in the airport, leaving Hong Kong to San Francisco.
Hmm. And so you came, so you were born in Hong Kong and then grew
Yes,
up in San Francisco. Wow.
yes.
That had to have been a big, although I guess at 5, you just, but that had to have been such a big transition as you went
You know, it's funny.
from. Mm,
Before that picture, I was in the hospital for a while because I had appendix that I had to take care of before. So it was that was a very those were very dark times because here I was in the hospital and all of a sudden next I'm in the airport going to come to America
mm,
after I got healed. Yeah, so
mm. Wow. And simply,
Surrendering to the calling. This picture is very, very, special to me. I was opening my hand saying, I surrender. And again, as I mentioned, instinct and intuition, listening to my intuitive guide to give me message for my life calling in the next step. I was there in Brooklyn. We were at Brooklyn Bridge. And I was at the water, which I love water. And I spoke to the universe and I said, well, high source, God, whatever we want to call it. I said, what do you want me to do? And what came back was, when you leave
mm,
here, your life is going to change in ways that you're not ready for. In order to get to the
mm,
next step that I have designed for you, you have to stop drinking.
mm.
And I
I love,
left that I left that photo shoot and I stopped drinking the very next day. And I haven't had a drink in almost a year and a half.
wow. That's powerful. And just again, the symbolism of your photos. I love just now knowing the depth behind the photos, the idea of opening yourself, like literally, metaphorically opening yourself up to the universe with your pose. And the fact that the suit's borrowed, to tell you the truth, just because it's that idea of I'm going to manifest what I'm going to be. They always say like dress for the role of where you're going. So, Henry, this is you in the Air Force?
yes, that was me when I was graduating basic training, San Antonio, Texas, Lackland Air Force
Mm,
Base.
well,
That was
so
a
do you
proud moment.
that was a what?
That was a proud moment for me to achieve that, graduate.
Sure. Absolutely. So then you're a pilot as well, yeah?
No, no, no. I was not. That was I was in the logistics for the military. I handled their.
Mhm. Mhm. It sounds like a big change, just you said, when you came back then to kind of start your life after that.
Yes.
Well, so uh there's so much power. There's just so much power and goodwill here in everything that you're doing. I think one of the things, I had a chance to read this. I love Simply has one of the exercises in the first chapter of her book is you're supposed to look in the mirror every morning and say 7 times, I am beautiful and worthy of great things. No, is it worthy? It is worthy of great things, is it? Yeah. Yeah, and so it's just I think sometimes we don't believe in that, but both of you have such amazingly powerful energy in terms of just believing, th- first of all, that you're worthy and what you have and the value you bring, but also what you can bring to others. So, so my last question for both of you along those lines, intercultural spark is about that spark that we bring to the world, often in the areas of diversity, equity, inclusion, communications and communications technology, or even creative entrepreneurship. So for each of you, what would you say is that spark that permeates your life, or that theme that is what you bring to the world? Henry, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I just want to, like I said, all my experiences, usually leveraging all my experiences to empower others, the voiceless and also to the kids and to also share that, we all have to work together, love each other, and build each other up, don't build them down, not judgmental because, you know what, and then no one's perfect. Okay. But yes, the only person that we can change is the one in the mirror, it's ourselves. But
Mhm.
we change ourselves, then others can see our change as well. So we can change other people, right?
Mhm.
We can advise them, but they have to make the change themselves. If everybody look in the mirror and make a change, and guess what? We will slowly see change and love. And that's really what it is. So,
Mhm.
Absolutely. I want to give Henry a hug right now. Like, Henry.
I like hugs.
Oh, fist pump right there. You, you,
Right.
you
Oh,
know,
there you go. Yeah.
yeah, fist pump. Boom. The idea of sparking to spark, I call it, to set it off in the hood, when you're fighting, you go set it off. What's the spark that's going to get people to open up and to surrender to their calling? I'm big on the calling. And the spark is showing people that it is okay to be authentic, showing people that they have within them this GPS. If you just sit still and honor that, you will be told what to do next. But what happens is that, especially in conditioned settings, or what I call the petri dish, the toxic petri dish, we're taught not to think for ourselves. And I say to you all to go against that. Think for yourself. Be an independent thinker. There's too much group think in the world. There's too many followers. Too many want to be, next level people. No, you get to the next level by doing the opposite of everyone else and recognizing that you're in competition with no one. Honor thyself first, and then everything else is going to fall into place. And I say all of that. I had to learn all of that.
Mhm.
Amen.
And I've
Amen.
learned that by surrendering.
Mhm. Thank you actually for taking all that learning and sharing it here today and sharing it with everyone who's watching now or afterwards. I'll make sure that I include everyone's contact information so people can reach you. For a second we had spoken before we even went live, just in terms of how important that is now with, I know it's Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Henry, you had brought up just some of the increased prejudice and actually acts of violence against people of Asian background, and how we can all just bring that love, that's what it takes. It's that is groupthink. That is groupthink. That's like stupid groupthink of people hearing uh just hearing things that are prejudicial and then taking it in. One actually final question, which is a good one. Ooh, look at this. Do either of you do personal coaching? Thinking of a few potential clients for both of you. We love that, Stephanie. Thank you. So is that something that either of you both?
It's something that I'm going to be adding on to my platform later on down the line, offering personal coaching and empowerment sessions to women in corporate organizations.
Mhm. So this is way you said, I'm going to open to the universe. I believe this was the universe saying, "Why wait? It's time."
It's time. It's time.
Yeah. Henry, what about you?
I've been offering myself to, since I again experienced. I've been through the war. I survived, especially the 2008 mortgage crisis. So what I did is I took that now during COVID, and now I'm offering to a lot of who are suffering, who needs help. So any advice, I'm open to help others who wants it. Anybody who wants, I'm open to that because I have the experience and I understand what they're going through, and I really want to guide them if they want to. How about that? So
Mhm. Mhm.
yes.
And you're talking about people who are maybe struggling because of loss or business loss, things like that through
Yes,
through COVID.
life,
Through
anything,
life.
business, life. I've been there, done that. Got the T-shirt.
And also in the midst of it all, I always tell, people that I meet, I give my cell phone number out freely, and I tell people, call me.
Yep.
Mhm.
One thing I recognized being in the inner city early on is that as I became more educated, I started to lose friends, which is, a good thing because they were toxic. But I also recognized that people became fearful. And, networking is being able to say, wait, I got to the next level. Let me pull you up and show you what needs to be done, as opposed to people being fearful of, oh, look at this person. Now they're quote unquote
Mhm.
educated. No, you can't get there if you don't know. I remember being on welfare and, being told by the caseworker who had this degree that I had to go work in the park for my check. It was $109. I never forget what she didn't know, because the thing in the hood, you don't tell all your business. We call it the pop out. I'm gonna let you know when I'm ready. And so what she didn't know was that I was getting ready to graduate, and I too was going to become a caseworker just like her. And I look back
Mhm.
at that story. I said, here's this minority woman that's in a position to guide me, but she's downgrading me. And so I've made it my business to pull people along the way. Here's the backdrop of that. I can pull you along the way. You have to be hungry enough to take a bite. You have to be hungry enough to take a bite out of that apple called growth and success.
Mhm. Mm. I could stay. I realize this is a habit as I get older. When I just really like people, I move closer, so my head's going to be like filling up the whole screen. And we have to. I need to end the show, which I don't want to. Let's just, because I'm feeling just so like I'm feeling so calm. Hearing both of you, this idea that more is more, that there's opportunity for everyone, that you can recover from setbacks that you have. It's just both of you combined for being so incredibly energetic, and all the power that you bring also just have a really calming effect. So thank you both so much for being here, and thank you for sharing your stories and for all that you're doing in the world. So I'm going to end our broadcast. Please don't hang up, but I'm going to end our live, and then we'll
Hey,
say
everybody out there,
goodbye.
don't give up. Don't give up. Never quit. Don't
Yep.
give up.
Cool. Well, thank you both.
Thank
And we'll
you.
see you next week on